President Buhari dispels insinuations that China loans will constitute a death trap for the country. Nigeria may lose more than $80 million in World Bank funding for SMEs. In international news, Japan's strongest typhoon in 25 years kills at least 6. And in sports, Nigeria Football Federation Ethics Committee hands Salisu Yusuf 1-year ban, $5,000 fine over bribery incident.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. President Muhammad Buhari has countered all suggestions that the loans from China will constitute a death trap for the nation and that the country might not be able to repay. President Buhari assured the nation that the projects for which the loans are intended are self-liquidating. Buhari says the partnership with China through the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation has resulted in the execution of critical infrastructure across the country. He said those projects are valued at $5 billion in the last 3 years of his administration. Buhari said the country is able to repay loans as and when due in keeping with policy of fiscal prudence. The debate on whether Nigeria needs to be restructured has pitted Vice President Yemi Osinbajo against former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. Both are locked in a bout of arguments and counter-arguments. Incumbent Vice President is opposed to geographical restructuring of the country, saying that is not a solution to Nigeria's spending. He says prudent spending, eliminating corruption and entrenching good governance will heal the wounds of marginalization. But former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says those words are very unfortunate. Atiku said reducing restructuring to a geographical meaning was a demonstration of a lack of appreciation for the tenets of the concept. To party politics, as 2019 general elections draw closer, the All Progressives Congress has released its guidelines for party primaries. APC will pick its presidential candidate on September the 20th, while the governorship primaries will hold 5 days later. Senatorial primaries are scheduled for September the 27th and the House of Representatives for the 29th. Primaries for state houses of assembly are scheduled for next month. Each aspirant for the party's presidential nomination will be set back 45 million naira as nomination fees. Governorship forms go for 22 million naira. The party announced that female and physically challenged aspirants who usually enjoy free nomination forms will not have to pay half of the nomination forms for any of the desired offices. Meanwhile, the national leadership of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has sent a petition to both the British Prime Minister Theresa May and German Chancellor Angela Merkel, accusing President Muhammad Buhari of impunity, anti-democratic vices and not respecting the rule of law. In the letter, National Chairman of the party, Uche Secondus, charged the federal government of using the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission to intimidate members of the opposition. He has appealed to the world leaders to ask President Buhari to move away from the alleged path of impunity. The Department of State Services, DSS, has urged media professionals in the country to be cautious about how they report information centered on national security to avoid a breach of peace. The agency says the media reporting on the internal affairs of the DSS has been speculative. The DSS reasserts its commitment to the stability and security of the nation, adding that this task can only be realized through the cooperation of its partners, including the media. The Kebbi State government has confirmed the death of a soldier, Marcel Nwankwo, and 9 others in 2 separate flood disasters in the state. Chief Press Secretary to the Governor, Abubakar Dakingari, says Kanya Village and Mahuta are the affected communities. Dakingari said although the body of the woman was recovered, others had been washed away. He said efforts are on the way to recover the bodies. The governor has visited the villages where community heads are imploring the government to construct an emergency bridge and provide canoes for immediate evacuation of residents to safer areas. Good news for residents of Katsina State. The federal government has commissioned the newly reconstructed Maska Earth Dam. The reconstruction executed by the federal government through the Ecological Fund Office has been handed over to Fontua Local Government Office in Katsina. The dam will provide adequate water supply for agriculture and other basic amenities. Let's talk some serious business. Nigeria may lose more than $80 million in World Bank funding, meant for strengthening the capacity of the country's small and medium-scale enterprises to create jobs. Reports say the lack of cohesion among public officials had hampered the capacity of the country to disburse the money secured from the World Bank to increase funding for SMEs. The World Bank says the objectives of the GMS project is to increase growth and employment. The Ministry of Industry has been accused of attempting to subvert the original purpose of the funds. The federal government has approved 72 billion naira for the reconstruction of Apapa Port access roads in Lagos State to be completed in 2 years. Preliminary discussions have started on road diversions and traffic management. Nigeria Immigration Service has arrested Muhammad Rabiu Issa, leader of a fake recruitment syndicate, over alleged employment scam. Issa has been handed over to the Independent Corrupt Practices and other related offences for prosecution. The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, NSCDC, has cautioned job seekers to beware of job scammers and fraudsters. Director General of NSCDC, Abdullahi Ghana, says NSCDC is not recruiting at the moment, and when it does, there would be an official announcement in the national dailies. Coming up, African stories. Beijing summit wraps up, Africa starts a new phase with China. And later, Japan hit by strongest typhoon in 25 years.
You are watching ANN.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Adam, go and bring us your husband. Okay, hello baby.
We're in this together, okay? Can you hear me? Keep coming forward.
Wait, stop.
You okay, lean to your right. Keep walking down. Keep walking to the left. Yes.
You're almost here.
Keep going.
You are here. Wow, you did it.
I'm just so glad I didn't have to use my cane to do this.
And I am so glad no other man got you before me. Let me be your eyes.
We will never stop working to give you a network you can rely on, so you can enjoy life's special moments. MTN, everywhere you go.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation wrapped up in Beijing, China on Wednesday, with African and Chinese leaders agreeing on major points to move their relationship forward. A communique was issued as well. At the summit, Chinese and African businesses sought trade opportunities and more contracts and deals were signed. Chinese President Xi Jinping had announced in a speech 8 actions covering agriculture, technology, transportation, energy, green development and security, which are the focus of discussions at the forum. At the end of the summit, a declaration that called for an even stronger China-Africa community with a shared future and an action plan were adopted at a two-phase roundtable chaired by Chinese and South African presidents. Ramaphosa was the co-chair of the forum. Here are some of the highlights of the summit's closing day.
Other international partners to support Africa in pursuing peace and development. China welcomes and supports all initiatives that meet Africa's interests. And we believe that it should be the same with the wider international community.
We are therefore very happy. We also buy a lot of things from China. The value of our imports from China is like $800 million a year. So we are cooperating very much for mutual benefit.
This relationship between Africa and China is becoming ever more stronger. We want Somalia to play an active role in that relationship, in that cooperation, both at the African level and at the Arab level.
China and Sierra Leone have enjoyed fruitful relationship in the past 47 years. We are involved in a lot of cooperation in area of infrastructure, health, of course, trade, and now we want to see what we can do in technology and innovation.
I think it is tremendous, because what is the objective? The objective is to open up our economies to trade.
You cannot have any development without a healthy population. You need a healthy population if you are going to have any meaningful development.
China is going to continue being a significant player in the South-to-South cooperation. Being the second biggest economy, the factory of the world, there's no way that China cannot play a part in this cooperation. And look at the figures. I mean, our trade between China and ourselves, in China's favor, is $6 million US, and we export to China 16 million. And we want to close that gap, but also broaden the pot.
In the past, Africa was just regarded by the developed world as a backward continent. But now, those who continue to regard Africa as a place they should not concern themselves with, then they're remaining behind.
China's actions have demonstrated that a stronger Africa is seen as an opportunity to invest in rather than as a problem or a threat.
We are working to build an Africa that is defined by good governance, democracy, respect for human rights, justice, and the rule of law.
It wasn't just African leaders that attended the forum. Western and Asian countries also had representatives there, and world organizations like the United Nations were there as well. In fact, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres gave a rousing and promising speech on the opening day of the summit.
Development cooperation is increasing based on the two mutually compatible roadmaps: the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the African Union's Agenda 2063. I commend this engagement. Cooperation based on the principles of the UN Charter can benefit your peoples and can benefit the international community as a whole.
Expert policy analysts speak on Beijing summit, and here is what some of them had to say.
Prepared to contribute to development and to increase the aid it is providing to Africa. And I believe that this commitment that President Xi reiterated in Beijing can create better opportunities for all African people.
What President Xi Jinping announced yesterday is absolutely unprecedented. He has announced $60 billion of development assistance in future after having already committed and implemented various projects worth more than $60 billion.
China was one of the few who responded quickly in 2014-2015 during that Ebola crisis. That was very helpful, and the countries actually appreciated the support they got from China. And that kind of support will be important.
When we're talking about FOCAC and Belt and Road Initiative from China's side, they have to be in line with the own development agenda of African countries, like the African Union 2063 agenda, and also like in Kenya, it is the Kenyan 2030 vision. It has to be in line with them.
Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping has met with President Muhammad Buhari at the end of the 2018 Beijing summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. Xi appreciated the joint efforts by China and Africa on the successful conclusion of the summit, adding that it was a historic gathering for China-Africa solidarity. Still ahead, international news. Japan pummeled by Typhoon Jebi. And later, coach Salisu Yusuf banned from all football-related activities.
You are watching ANN.
MTN gives 2,000% bonus for reactivating your MTN SIM. That's right. If you haven't used your MTN SIM for 45 days or more, recharge now and get 2,000% bonus. That's right, 2,000% bonus for your first recharge of every month.
While the world sleeps, ANN News stays awake. News takes no time off. We are awake so you can sleep. We report the stories that keep you up to date, events that affect your day, your week, month, and experiences. We scour the world, bringing it to your living room. Watch ANN News in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. On the international scene, 8 persons have been killed and many more injured in western Japan after a powerful typhoon slammed into the city on Tuesday. Airports were closed and thousands were left stranded. Typhoon Jebi is believed to be the strongest to make landfall in Japan since 1993. The Japan Meteorological Agency says it was off the northern coast of Fukui on Monday night with sustained winds of 126 kilometers per hour and gusts up to 180 kilometers per hour. High-speed bullet train service was suspended from Tokyo West to Hiroshima. More than 1.5 million households remained without power in Osaka. Fire and Disaster Management Agency said 150 persons were injured. Rat fever and other diseases have killed 14 people on Tuesday, following India's worst floods last month. Government officials say the number of persons who died from the monsoon floods, which began at the end of May, has risen to almost 500 in the state of Kerala. More than 1 million persons were forced from their homes last month because of devastating floods and landslides, sweeping off villages and forcing dams to be opened. Kerala Health Director said they had anticipated leptospirosis because of contaminated water and are taking all measures to distribute preventive drugs in camps. Leptospirosis, also called Veil's disease, is transmitted through water containing urine from rodents and other animals. France and the UK are scheduled to hold talks in London to resolve tensions between British and French scallop fishermen. 40 French boats clashed with 5 UK crafts last week in a row over scallop fishing off northern France. British crews also said rocks and smoke bombs were hurled at them during the confrontation. French Agriculture Minister Stéphane Travers said on Tuesday that France's Navy was ready to intervene and prevent further clashes. Prime Minister Theresa May's spokesperson said the important thing is that there are talks between both sides, hoping that it will reach an amicable outcome. Up next, NFF hands Salisu Yusuf 1-year ban. Stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
If you know fit go internet or follow for Twitter, you know fit snap photo send or get the photo send. Now because you the use Palasa, see wahala. My brother, go get smart for the air. Drop that balasa phone. Phone when no go for your hand. Drop that balasa phone. Phone when no fit take selfie. Drop that balasa phone. No be correct for the drop that balasa phone.
Upgrade to a smartphone today and get double data for 6 months on any MTN data bundle you buy. Simply purchase a smartphone from any store, anywhere in Nigeria, or bring your current smartphone from any network. Insert your MTN SIM card to start enjoying your double data bonus. Offer is open to all new and existing MTN subscribers. Join the largest smartphone movement today.
Make it known for your hand.
I am Lucy Adeyemi.
I am Rotimi Akintunde.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji.
We bring you
the news
on ANN News.
Business.
Politics.
Global news.
Watch ANN News.
In a truly African spirit.
There is a new all-news network on the scene in Nigeria to give news from a purely news perspective and to promote free information flow across Africa. Fresh views, unbiased, bold, with a purely African view. African News Network, ANN, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. In sport, the Ethics Committee of the Nigerian Football Federation has placed a one-year ban on all football activities on Super Eagles assistant coach Salisu Yusuf after finding him culpable of receiving money in return for favor from undercover reporters. Yusuf was also fined $5,000. The footage captured by controversial Ghanaian journalist Anas Aremeyo last year showed Yusuf receiving $1,000 to pick 2 players for this year's CHAN Championships. He was further promised 15% by the men who posed as agents of the football players. Yusuf has since denied any wrongdoing, insisting that he did not promise or commit to selecting any player in exchange for money. A Gabonese footballer who plays at the Premier League has been fined $124,000 and banned from driving for a year after failing to tell police who was driving his speeding car. The Southampton midfielder, Mario Lemina, admitted 3 counts of failing to identify himself in March and May. Lemina was charged for each of the 3 offences in addition to the victim's surcharge. Lemina's lawyer, Cliff Morris, said he's not sure if his brother or his cousin was driving the vehicle at the time. Photographs of the speeding car did not help in identifying the driver. The Gabonese midfielder was signed in a club record deal worth $23 million for a 5-year deal in August last year. Goes to show technology can solve all problems. That's ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on this and other stories, visit our website, annafrica.net. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Have a great evening.